Hello students, so today the topic that we have with us is human respiratory system. We need to talk about this system, we need to talk about how the system functions, what are the different parts that are involved in the system. So in order to talk about it, first of all what we need to understand is that what is human respiratory system. So it is one of the most important system that we have in our human body or even in any organism as well, which is made up of many parts that work together to bring oxygen into the body and expel the carbon dioxide. Now, generally, whenever we talk about the respiratory system, the primary purpose of this system is the exchange of gases. And that, like I can say here, if once the exchange of gases takes place, then you can say that there will be the formation of energy as well, because that is the resultant purpose of the respiratory system. So now in terms of exchange of gases, we can say it will bring oxygen and expel carbon dioxide. Now, if I talk about the different parts that are involved in the respiratory system, so our lungs are the primary or the main respiratory organs. Other than that, we have, like, I can say that lungs are also connected with the external air through nose, pharynx, larynx, trachea, bronchi, and bronchioles. And we will be talking about all of this one by one, but these are like the major parts. Now, if I show you the diagram of the human respiratory system, so here you can see the different parts that are involved in our respiratory system, which is nasal cavity, and then you have nostril, then oral cavity, and then pharynx, trachea. Then you have bronchioles, which is like you can see a left main bronchus and right main bronchus, and then you have right lung and left lung, and diaphragm also, which is like another very important part of the respiratory system. So these are like major part of it, and you can see where exactly they are present in the respiratory system. Now, if I talk about the different parts, so the first and the fourth most is the presence of the what I can say here is nose. Okay, because with the help of nose only you are able to perform the exchange of gases. So here we breathe air through nose and nostrils. Nostrils open into nasal passages, and in the nasal passages the air is filtered, warmed, and moisture before entering the lungs. This is the primary function of the nose, because you might be able to breathe through the mouth as well. I'm not sure I can say that might you are able to breathe through the mouth as well. But the thing with the mouth is that there are no hair in your mouth, which is like a very important role that they play, is basically they filter the air with all the dust and unnecessary particles. Okay, so that is how the nose plays its part. And not only that, it will also warm up the air so that it will, when it will enter into our body, it will have the same temperature as well, and also moisten it, so that once it passes through our body, it like passes very easily. Because again, the whole internal atmosphere of our body is very different. Then you have pharynx, which is like the common passage for not only the air but also the food. And this opening of trachea, or what you can say the pharynx as well, in pharynx is guarded by this muscular flap called epiglottis or vulva, which closes glottis while we swallow the food to avoid the entry of food into the trachea. Now, if I show you the diagram where exactly the epiglottis is present is, so it is somewhere where the mouth is. So this is like your, you can say here is your epiglottis. Okay. Now, epiglottis is a flap-like structure, as you already studied. So it basically tries to make sure that food doesn't enter into the what I can say here is windpipe, because that windpipe is supposed to be for the wind, not for the food. And if it enters, you might be able to have, you might be choke sometimes, and you might feel pain if even the water will enter. So that is why that flap will always stops the food and water and only allow the air to pass through it. Then you have larynx. Larynx is like a voice box, if I may say. It is the upper part of the trachea, and it is also called the voice box or the Adam's apple, as I told you. And it connects pharynx to the trachea, and it is the sound producing organ which contains vocal cords, and sound is produced by the vibrations in the vocal cords. So general idea of the production of sound is the vibrations, but in larynx, since we are exchanging the air, and air is the reason the sound is able to produce inside our voice box or larynx. So that is why it is also included in the human respiratory system. Then you have the air which is passing from the nasal passages and reaches lungs through the trachea. Okay, and the wall of trachea is supported into C-shaped rings of the cartilage. Like the trachea is like covered with the C-shaped rings so that it won't get damaged. Okay, and so does the lungs as well. Like all of these organs are very delicate. So if they are open to the shock or something like that, what will happen? They might get damaged, and that is why they're covered with the bony structures or they're covered with the cartilages. Now, if you talk about trachea, it is also divided into two bronchi and which enter the respective lungs like left and right as I already show you, and inside the lungs the bronchi divided and redivide into bronchioles which further divide and finally end to the air sacs or alveoli which is inside the lungs. And then you have the lungs, which is like the main respiratory organs. They are pair of spongy, highly elastic and bag-like structures, and lungs are enclosed in an airtight thoracic cavity which is formed of backbone, ribs, and sternum. Now, the whole point of telling you about this is why lungs have such kind of a structure. First of all, they are elastic because they have to perform the gaseous exchange. So they have to fill in the air, they have to remove the air. So what you can say here is contraction and relaxation both has to be there. And for that, it has to be elastic. And why bag-like? Because it is able to hold up the air. That is why it is bag-like. Okay. And as I said, it has to be supported. So it is supported by backbone, rib, and sternum. Okay. And also, a large muscular diaphragm forms the floor of the thoracic cavity and separates it from the abdominal cavity, which is like this part here, which is known as diaphragm. Okay, so this particular part is basically helps the lung to all like contract and relax as well, and also separates like once they are relaxing or contracting, they don't damage the other parts of the body as well. Okay. Lungs have numerous tiny thin-walled and air-filled air sacs called alveoli, like where exactly what you can say the exchange of gases is taking place. So inside the lungs you will find lot more small sacs that are called alveoli. And there are almost 715 million alveoli, 50 million alveoli in lungs. Okay, they present a large surface area for the exchange of gases. Now, what is the point of having a large surface area? The more the surface of alveoli is covered with a fine of network of blood capillaries. So whenever we breathe in, these alveoli get filled with fresh air. Oxygen from these air enters into the blood capillaries and carbon dioxide from blood comes out in the air. So again, as I said, the more the surface area, the more the capillaries are able to reach them, the more the gaseous exchange is possible, and the more you are able to breathe in, you are able to utilize that gaseous exchange and utilize it for the energy purposes. Okay, so that is why we have more surface area inside the lungs. And this is how you are able to understand the whole respiratory system present in our body. I hope this will help you. Thank you.